Good morning. Welcome to South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. My name is Tom, and my pronouns are he and him. I have brown hair, blue shirt, kind of a medium build, Caucasian guy. And it is my privilege to serve as your worship associate for this morning's service. I want to welcome each and every one of you here physically with us in the sanctuary as well as online. Each of you individuals have brought your own unique body, your own unique experiences, your own unique beliefs here this morning to join us. We celebrate you as individuals, and we thank you for being here with us. We welcome you. In this community, we walk through life together. We lend each other our helping hands and our listening ears. We work together to make the world a little more just, a little more generous, and a little more fun. We have a few announcements for you here this morning. In a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from now, our service will be a flower communion and a membership ceremony. So we'll have new people who have signed and become members, and we'll celebrate them and recognize them. So please make sure you're here in a couple weeks. And then in 3 weeks, on May 19th, we have our youth bridging and community potluck and annual meeting. So if you've been wanting to vote and participate and see how, or even just observe and see how the congregation is run, please come in 3 weeks for that congregational meeting. For all other announcements, we're just going to refer people to the slides and to your printed. There's a lot of other things happening, so please refer to the printed announcements as well as the announcements up here. Reverend Lora has one more.
I have something for us to celebrate today. Can I have Robb Carlson and John Allen come forward, please? So these two fine gentlemen in our congregation have recently thresholded in their education. This month, you defended your master's thesis and now have a master's in justice and ethics. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. John Allen. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you for sharing your many, many, many talents with this congregation over the last couple of years.
All right, everyone, for the last several weeks, we've been having a theme of wellness. Greg Anderson said, wellness is the complete integration of body, mind, and spirit, the realization that everything we do, think, and feel and believe has an effect on our state of well-being. So we've mostly talked about mental well-being and social aspects of wellness, and today we're going to be talking about sexual wellness. You guys all excited? I think Reverend Lora and I are both very excited, actually. This is a great topic. Anyway, one of the most important concepts around sexual wellness is consent. So we're going to do a little exercise as we do enjoying the warmth of community. I'm going to ask each of you to ask consent for every interaction you're about to have. Okay? So when you stand up and you're about to talk to somebody, I want you to say something like, Could I talk to you for a moment? Yes. And she says yes, and then we can talk. Or I might say, could I give you a hug? No. And she'll say no, and that's okay. And that's okay. So please know that saying no is okay. And then you can know and move on and respect that person's boundaries, okay? So here we go. Let's go ahead and stand and share warmth of community and practice consent.
All right. Have a seat. Oh, I love that we love to share the warmth of community, but it is time to sit down. Quiet coyote style. Quiet coyote style. We are a joyful community and a hard band community as well, apparently. I am the Reverend Lora Young. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am a tall, pale-skinned woman with red glasses and shoulder-length red hair in a black suit that is very crisp. Our call to worship this morning, I just want to say a little bit more about what Tom said, that we're going to be speaking today about human sexuality, about that connection that we have, not just with other people, but with ourselves. I want to challenge you to and assure you that the vision of sexuality and wholeness is not about whether or not you are partnered at this time. It is about your relationship with yourself, first and foremost, and the radical love that we'll talk about later that we can nurture and sustain with ourselves, and then share with other people, be that family, friends, and lovers. So I pull from a very ancient source this morning from the Psalms for our call to worship. This is from Psalm 1, and it's a version by Stephen Mitchell. And they write, "Blessed are the man and the woman," I will add, the non-binary and the gender fluid as well. "Blessed are all the bodies who have grown beyond their greed and put an end to their hatred and no longer nourish illusions. But they delight in the way things are and keep their hearts open day and night. They are like trees planted near flowing rivers, which bear fruit when they are ready. Their leaves will not fall or wither. Everything they do will succeed." Let us enter into this time of worship with one another as the blessed and whole beings that we already are. And as we do so, we also will light our chalice. Sophia will come forward and help us. And we have a brand new candle this morning. I am so excited. I don't know if you noticed this gigantic rainbow candle. I've had my eye on this candle actually for about 6 months. I finally went and bought it yesterday. It seemed appropriate to celebrate all that we are. So join me in saying our chalice lighting words as they are up on the screen. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and the energy of action. Okay, now we're going to do a story. If you are young or young at heart, and you'd like to come forward for a story. Okay, so this children's story is a participatory story because worship is participatory, right? So the adults, when I ask questions, if you want to jump up, you can jump up. If you want to raise your hand, you can raise your hand. You can do what you wish. Okay, so who here has a body? Is there anyone in the room that doesn't have a body? Probably not. Okay, everyone has a body. Good. Woo! How many of you need a body?
Everyone.
Everyone needs a body, right? Right.
Because then we cannot walk, we cannot buy, then we cannot make games, nothing.
Yeah, we couldn't play games, we couldn't walk, we couldn't eat, we couldn't give our parents hugs.
You can't do anything because all of your bones are connected to your body.
Exactly. You have to have a body, right?
And if you don't have a body, you cannot do nothing.
You can't do nothing. You would say you're not a human being if you don't have a body,
And
right?
you cannot go to church.
You definitely cannot go to church, and that is the most important thing. You have to have a body to come to church. That's excellent. I really appreciate that. Okay, so does everybody's body look the same? No. Do some people wear glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah, raise your hand if you wear glasses. Yeah. Does everybody have a nose?
Most people.
Most people have noses, right?
Everyone has noses.
Yeah, everyone has a way to breathe, right? Right? Does everybody have hair?
Yes.
No. Some people wish they had more hair than others. All right. Are all bodies the same height? No. All bodies are really different, right?
Yes.
How many of you over the summer saw the movie Barbie?
We don't remember they did.
Yeah, some of you might be a little too young to see the movie Barbie, right? And what is that movie about if you saw that? Yeah. It's about Barbie and an adventure she goes on. Yeah. And it's a journey, right? She goes on, right? And what does she learn about in that movie? You don't know? What did you tell me, Robb?
Her world wasn't quite what she thought it was.
Her world was not quite what she thought it was, right? She learned a little bit about beauty, right? She learned a little bit about beauty. And one of the most important parts of that movie was a moment when she crosses over from Barbie land into the regular world that you and I know, and she begins to confront the idea that beauty is different. I'll cue that slide, Brenda, if we have it. She's like, I got it coming. She has this scene, right, where she sits down on a park bench with an elderly woman. And Barbie has had the roughest day, right? She's had a really rough day. People have been so unkind to her, despite her fabulous pink cowboy outfit, right? She sits down next to the bench, and she's having kind of a moment, and she turns to the older woman, and she says, "You are so beautiful. You are so beautiful." And what does the woman say back to her? I know. I know. I know. So a funny thing happened a number of years ago, about 10 years ago. I and a good friend of mine decided that we would form a Facebook group. Back when you did those things, because Facebook was really central to our lives, before Instagram. And the name of this group was The Most Beautiful People of Santa Barbara. And we promoted this group, and we didn't tell anyone what the rules were. And there was only one rule to be able to be admitted to this Facebook group. What are some ideas? What could our rules have been? Be beautiful. Yes. You had to be beautiful. You had to be in Santa Barbara. That's true. We did make some exceptions. But you had to be in Santa Barbara, and you had to be beautiful.
So beautiful.
You had to be so beautiful.
Like that old woman.
Like that old woman, right? So there was only one rule, and yet was this. You had to ask to join the group. That was it. You had to ask to join the group. If you asked, you were admitted. It took months for a lot of people to figure this out. But once people started figuring it out and spread it, I think at one point we got up to like 600 people in that group. It no longer exists. We took it down a long time ago, but it had one rule. You had to be fabulously beautiful because you had to ask to be in the group. And so I thought we could have our own version of that group today. So, as we excuse you to go down to your activities, you'll notice that we have our bowl over here. It's usually called the Joys and Sorrows Bowl. Today, it is called the Beauty Bowl. And if you are a fabulously beautiful person, I want you to put a rock in there. That's the only rule. You have to walk up and put a rock in the bowl, and you are in. And the grown-ups are invited to come up at any point during the service when you realize. Thank you, TJ. If you are a fabulously beautiful person, I want you to come and put a rock in the bowl. All right, let's sing our children out. And if you feel so moved right now, you can come put a rock in the bowl. And if in the middle of my sermon you want to put a rock in the bowl, you can do that too. It's an all-comers time.
Good time to sneak up and put one in the bowl if you want. So over the past, no, okay, come, don't let me interfere. Please, come and put some in the bowl while I'm talking. That's totally cool. I'm just going to introduce the offertory here. So over the past 2.5 years, I've had the great privilege of investing just a little bit of my time, energy, and treasure into this community, and I want to say that I am by far the richer for it. And I thank you for that, my spiritual fellows here at SVUUS. At this time, I'm going to invite you all to also share so that we can continue to see this community thrive and little by little make positive change in the world. Each month, we share our plate with an organization that shares our values, and this month's partner is the Youth Resource Center. The Youth Resource Center is a drop-in resource center and emergency shelter serving homeless and imminently at-risk youth ages 15 to 22 along the Wasatch Front. And I think a lot of you are familiar with this place. This is the place that we organize meals, we go down and help out, and so a lot of you are very familiar with it. This is the place that we're supporting with our split plate offering this month. So please join me in reading our offertory words. They're printed in your order of service and up here. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We'll now accept an offering. For those of you at home, you're invited to use the giving link in the online order of service. I invite the ushers to come forward, and we're going to have some amazing music. Not to set the bar too high or anything, okay, Lisa, but from Lisi Youngberg. Thank you.
Check, check. And feel free to continue to drop your pebbles in the bowl if the song makes you feel beautiful or reminds you that you're beautiful.
Lamentation.
can I keep from singing?
Thank you, Lisi, for extending the gift of your music into this space. I started crying. I was watching you all guys come up. So we'll see what happens in my sermon. I might need to break down a little bit. For all that we have given, let us be grateful. For all that we have the opportunity to give, let us be grateful. In my older church that I went to, we always would say, let us be grateful for the gifts that we're able to receive so that we may know the generosity of others. So may these gifts be a blessing, not just in this community, but on the Youth Resource Center and for all time to come.
All right, I'm going to give you a few thoughts about sexual wellness. And I'm going to start out with this quote from Langston Hughes. Folks, I'm telling you, birthing is hard, dying is mean, so get yourselves a little loving in between. Right? I feel like this entire thing is just going to be me saying things out loud that normally we keep silent or we're too afraid to say. Okay, and the first one is, we are all sexual beings. Sex is part of who we are, right? And it's a good thing. And we're not all the same. We are unique. We're different. Our sexuality shows up in different ways, and it's all okay. At least that's the main message I got from this book. Has anybody else read this book? This is called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski or something. It's just a fantastic book. And right there it says in the title, Come As You Are. However you are, it's okay. You're good. You're normal. Your sexuality is probably different from everyone else on the planet in some way, but it's okay. You're normal. As a matter of fact, let me read just a little quote here. So she's talking about how our sexuality changes over time. And an apple tree can be healthy when it's a seed, and when it's a seedling, and when it's growing, and as it fades at the end of the season, as well as when in late summer it's laden with fruit. All of those phases are healthy, normal phases. But it has different needs at each of those phases in its life. You too are healthy and normal at the start of your sexual development, as you grow, as you bear the fruits of living with confidence and joy inside your body. You are healthy when you need lots of sun, and you're healthy when you enjoy some shade. That's the true story. We are all the same. We are all different. We are all normal. Another thing that I got from this book, and by the way, this is a book primarily about female sexuality, but another thing I got from this book that is just so wonderful is kind of a theme about self-love or masturbation. As a matter of fact, in the back of this book, there's a tutorial. I'm not going to read it to you, okay? But it's a very important thing. I grew up in a faith tradition that frowned on self-love or masturbation. In fact, it was a major step forward in my faith journey when I realized that I probably knew better what was okay for me to do in private than my church leaders did. So, are there restraints? Are there things we shouldn't do with our sexuality? Yes, it is actually really important to have some guidelines and rules and things that govern our sexuality. So, I put up here this owl symbol. Hopefully you've all heard of OWL. It stands for Our Whole Lives. It's the comprehensive sexual education program, which is for, just like it says, our whole lives. There's a version of it for kids that's appropriate for younger kids, for teenagers, for adults. And I went to them to find out what they consider to be the governing core values that should help us to understand how to restrict, or not restrict, but to control and use our sexuality. They talk about respect, relationships, and responsibility. So just really quickly, respect. Are my actions showing respect for myself and for others? Do I have active and enthusiastic consent from all participants? Relationships. Are my actions building stronger and healthier relationships? Or are my actions destroying or hurting relationships? And responsibility. Am I taking responsibility? There are real consequences of sexual actions. I hope you all know this. I have 5 kids, for example. So I know, okay? Am I taking responsibility for my actions? These are the core values. So I just want to end with this thought, that I hope we each can develop our own core values. We all might be a little bit different, but hopefully there's something similar to this: respect and relationships, responsibility, so that we can care for ourselves and care for each other, and express our sexuality in a healthy way. And I just want to end with this one statement. When it comes to self-love or masturbation, I want to be absolutely clear. What you do when you're alone is your own private business. It's none of my business, but I absolutely hope you're having the time of your life.
Thank you for breaking the seal on that. I just want to get you to settle in just a little bit more, because conversations about sexuality can be awkward. And we're going to have an awkward conversation right now. But let this also be a time of gentleness, a time of deep care, and a time of kindness. So I was raised in a loving and kind home in which my parents were affectionate with me and my brother, and in which we grew up knowing we were, without a doubt, loved. When I was 7, my mother gave me the book, Where Did I Come From? Which I will point out that this year is the 50th anniversary of this book. I'm also turning 50 this year, so it's kind of funny on me. So kudos to my parents for reading this book to me, because as it says on the front page, it is a no-nonsense illustrated book about sex. My parents read me this book, they had it provided for me, and in this way, my parents did a lot more than many other parents did of their era and even to today. And yet, even though this was forward-thinking for their time and in their era, the 1970s, there were some critical conversations left out. Topics such as body image, self-love, consent and boundaries, and in my family, any sort of ethical framework beyond don't have sex outside of marriage. The result was that upon arrival to puberty, my girl body was totally unprepared for the beauty and body standards levied at me. And so I reacted like so many other adolescents, by absorbing the idea that there was but a single ideal of beauty and perfection, and that I did not fit it. I was thus caught in that cultural web of which we are so familiar, suspended, so to speak, by the sticky silk strands of shame and guilt from which breaking free can be exceedingly difficult. Fun fact, how do spiders not get stuck in their own webs? Do you know? It's because they actually have some silk that is not sticky and some silk that is sticky, and they know which one to stay on. I don't know why you're laughing. I don't know. Maybe there's something that happened. I don't know. My first year in college, I realized that I was rather ill-equipped to deal with sexuality and intimate relationships. So I turned to the one friend that I knew had the best answers. My friend Ginger, who was a cradle Unitarian Universalist. You see, she'd been through the entire Our Whole Lives Sexual Health and Relationships program. And she was equipped to handle not just my specific questions about sex, but more importantly, could model for me how to talk openly and honestly about sexuality without automatically shutting down. Those talks were deeply empowering to me as a young adult, and it was from that sense of empowerment that I went on to further educate myself by enrolling in a human sexuality class and then volunteering as an HIV/AIDS educator on campus. And by the time I graduated in 1996, I knew that I wanted to work for Planned Parenthood, and I landed a job there a few short years later as an educator. My time at Planned Parenthood was rich, productive, and healing. And I would like to say that it was after I left Planned Parenthood that I got pregnant. I don't know if that's connected or not. So while it would be a stretch to say that the OWL program is the reason I am able to stand before you this morning and talk so openly about human sexuality, a topic that can often make people blush, I think it is fair to say that when we as a congregation offer this kind of program, you never know whose lives will be touched. In her book, The Body is Not an Apology, Sonia Renee Taylor takes on this shame game directly, stating that in no uncertain terms, that yes, we live in a world wherein the body, every body, is judged by its adherence to an idealized body. You can also call this the default body. And deviation from the default body is punishable. Bodies that do not align with the default body, the preferred body, are shamed, silenced, policed, and in some cases subjected to violence and murder. That's how serious this is. Now, I'd like you to take a moment to consider, if you're a visual person, and this is how your mind works, if there was a specific image that popped into your mind when I said there was an ideal or a default body that exists in our world by which all human bodies are judged. What did you see? This Barbie, yeah. This can be hard to do because as good Unitarian Universalists, we are likely to resist that initial image that comes to our mind. And if I were to ask you to tell me what you first saw, you'd perhaps be tempted to tell me that you didn't see a tall, white, clean-shaven, able-bodied, not bald, tall, strong, and free from disease man or Barbie. And I appreciate the earnestness with which we struggle to overcome those ideal images in our heads. If you are someone who struggles or who resists that idea, know that you are completely normal. Because this is what's called an embedded image, an image that is given to you by the culture from before the time that you can walk or talk or do anything, before you can give consent. And even if you are someone who doesn't see images, You know of this normative default body. You know of its existence, and you can recognize it immediately when I describe it. And I want you to know it's okay to be honest, because I see it too. Mine looks quite similar to Matthew McConaughey. He's the one that I have that ticket. You know, if he says, please, I get to say yes. So your unconscious mind will serve up an image of that every single time. And I want you, beyond that chuckle that we just shared, to stay for a moment in that tension between what you actually see, what your unconscious mind sees, and how you feel about that. Seeing that image, that embedded image, is different, of course, than taking action in accordance with the image. Notice that there is a gap, however small, between that embedded image and how you respond. And that gap, no matter how small, is the space in which we can change and shift those embedded images. It is that space, you can call it the ground of being, that big theological term, the ground of being, right? Where healing can take root, where unjust systems can be unrooted, and an ethic of joy can be cultivated. You can also think of it as how we cut ourselves out of that sticky part of the web. We all have a body, and it's required. But as many of us are acutely aware, we do live in a system that tells us that we are not enough. We live in a system that externalizes our value and insists that we work tirelessly to change our bodies to fit the ideal, while at the same time reinforcing the false idea that some bodies are just never going to be acceptable. Sonia Renee Taylor imagines this as a hierarchy of bodies. A hierarchy of bodies, like a ladder, which we are all clinging to. And she'd like to help us not just get off the ladder, but to divest and dismantle it all together. And her answer may surprise you. Her answer is not working to increase our self-esteem or our self-confidence, because those are externalized, intellectual ideas that teach us mostly to manage our position on the hierarchy of bodies. She wants us to go deeper and farther to a place, a port, if you will, beyond self-esteem, beyond self-confidence, beyond tolerating our differences. She wishes us to set sail for the port of radical self-love. Now, arrival to such a port requires courage, because it requires resisting those embedded images and those embedded systems. And it requires letting go of the idea that we are going to fit into our jeans from high school ever again. It is a commitment that is born of connecting to a deeper source of love, a love so deep and so radical that Sonia Renee Taylor says it is a radical love that actually changes shit. That's a direct quote. A love that changes shit. A radical love. A radical love that actually changes stuff in the world. It's an inside-out job, and we need to work together. Author Marvin Ellison agrees with Sonia's assessment, and he writes in his book, Making Love Just, that sexuality has a history, some of which is oppressive. Because sexuality is not just personal, it is political and it is cultural. And we need a social ethic to examine how social structures and belief systems have been impacting our sexuality for millennia. He goes on to argue that holds us back from crafting such an ethical framework that affirms sexuality and resists abuse has been an ambivalence about the injustice at the heart of our current social order. And by ambivalence, he does not mean not caring, because that's a shallow understanding of ambivalence. What he means is that we have conflicting commitments, conflicting values, and conflicting feelings about the world around us. The ambivalence, he notes, is one that knows we live in a patriarchal marriage culture. That we live in a patriarchal marriage culture. A model that prescribes traditional gender role expectations and hierarchical power dynamics and results in gender inequality and gender-based violence, that is also at the same time overwhelmed, that we are also overwhelmed by the magnitude of what will be required to change this system. That we know it is wrong, but we don't know how to change it. And the result is an ambivalence, a sort of paralysis of action. It is an ambivalence that results in our sexual education programming in the public schools being heavily weighted toward the consequences of sex rather than the joys of sex. And realizes that in order to change it, we'd actually have to do something different. And that something different involves a whole lot of awkward and uncomfortable conversations. Both agree. The only way out of shame and guilt is through. The only way out of shame and guilt is through. We want to live free from shame and guilt and wear those cute jeans as well. But I think as you move through the shame and guilt, you realize that those cute jeans are made to manage, police, and control your body into a shape that never changes, and to suggest, as our author did in the apple tree metaphor, that you are somehow less worthy or less whole in a different season of your life than in the one in which those cute jeans were a possibility. We are also ambivalent about changing this system because we are afraid. We are afraid of losing our position on the hierarchy of bodies, because the higher you are on that hierarchy, the less subject to violence, abandonment, and abuse you are. The policing of bodies that do not comply is always swift, laced with an implicit threat of violence, an implicit threat of violence that can quickly become explicitly lethal. About 10 years ago, when I came out as bisexual, I understood what it means to lose a rung or two. Conversations such as signing up for a family membership at the gym, which had always been mundane and utterly forgettable, were suddenly different. I had to decide what to disclose about my family. Which is why I've always been so puzzled when a straight friend jokes that they might just try out being bisexual for a while. Because as wonderful as it is to live into a fuller sense of myself as beloved and whole, it was and is a lot of work. And it comes with a social price. A social price that you have no choice but to pay. I agree with Marvin Ellison and Sonia Renee Taylor that if we want to resist the traps of ambivalence, let go of our fear and hop off the ladder and stop the very real harm and violence perpetuated against the bodies of vulnerable people, we are going to need an ethic that resists the old ways. One that is able to hold the tensions inherent in liberation work and teach us, support us, and hold us accountable to acting in life-affirming and life-giving ways. Luckily for us in this room, we don't have to recreate that from whole cloth. That work has already been underway for decades, not just in this congregation, but in many Unitarian and United Church of Christ congregations. The founders of the Our Whole Lives program broke the silence surrounding bodies. They laid claim to the radical idea that we can have both justice and joy in our intimate lives by providing accurate, fact-based health information, encouraging discussion and reflection about values and how to get help if you or someone you know is in an abusive situation. Broke boundaries. It began the radical work of setting sail for that port of self-love. And we continue over this time to evolve our program. In the beginning, perhaps it was radical in the beginning to name that there were lesbian and gay bodies. Over time, we began to name the bodies of people who are older, who are differently abled, who maybe are physically or mentally different, those who are neurotypical. We laid claim to large bodies and small bodies, tall bodies and short bodies. And we included them in the circle of health. Right now, our OWL program is doing that good work. In fact, this very weekend, there are 13 youth engaged in our Whole Lives weekend program. Right now, I see that our program needs to continue to respond to the challenges before us, especially the ways in which social media is impacting the ability to access radical self-love, especially among 11 to 14-year-old girls, who the research suggests have suffered one of the greatest declines in mental health that has ever been noted starting in the year 2012. We've always been concerned about our young girls. We have more reason to be concerned today for the impact, the way in which social media, and I'm not dissing social media, I just think we need to be smart about it, about the way in which social media is hijacking that port to self-love. There's also an obvious need to address the cultural conditions right now that are resulting in the rolling back of access to reproductive health and abortion. Rollbacks that are affecting the choices that our youth are making about the careers that they will pursue and the places they will live. Some of my co-parents on Facebook have encouraged their daughters to only go to college in places where they can have access to abortion services should they need it. I also have one wish for the OWL program. A slight distinction. I would like it to push itself on a little bit more, and I invite you to imagine this with me. The Our Whole Lives program has become a completely secular curriculum. A completely secular curriculum at this point. And I wonder about that decision. I understand why it happened, but I wonder about that decision. I wonder what is lost when we separate sexuality from spirituality. when we no longer see it as absolutely critical to name for our youth that sexual intimacy, be that within our own selves or with another, is deeply sacred, infused with mystery, and contains within it the very source of radical love that we so deeply need. I wonder what would happen if we could get over our awkwardness and discomfort about spirituality and sexuality. It's not a major shift, but it could be a radical choice. It is a radical choice to resist the voices that would say that religion and sexuality do not mix well. It is a reclaiming of our whole selves by refusing to let who we are be divided. Mind, body, soul. Those divisions don't exist. You can't have a mind without a body, a soul without a body without a soul. It's all one, right? It's all one. And I wonder what would happen in this community if we worked also to reclaim religious language from the so-called right around sexuality. Not just the right to justice and joy, but the right to sacredness, sanctity, even purity. And make of them something broader, more beautiful, and more liberating than before. What might be the ethic that emerges from that? I think it would be an embodied, spiritually grounded, and relational ethic of wholeness. A sense of beingness that is cultivated and sustained, evaluated, and pursued over the course of our lives. I wonder if we can create such an understanding of sexuality, an understanding that invites us to stand firmly on a spectrum that is at one end strongly anti-abuse and at the other end strongly sex-positive, and then to collapse and walk away completely from a spectrum because we know that what's required is wholeness. And from that wholeness, forge an integrity and joy-filled sexuality. To live with that kind of sexual integrity is at once both deeply personal and radically communal. It is, as theologian Mary Hunt once observed, a state of observing that I feel whole and other people tell me I seem whole. I think that is what is at the deep heart of a faith-based approach to sexuality education, ensuring the sacredness of every body. Being radically inclusive, joyful, brave, because that is the way to save lives. So, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to bring about that radical love? That kind of radical love that Sonia Renee Taylor says actually changes stuff. What are you willing to do differently? What are you willing to recommit to? How will you now live into the tension between where we are and how far it yet seems we have yet to go? My parents did what they felt was radical to them. They gave me a book about sex. I went on and taught my daughter the word vulva at age 3, and later seriously embarrassed both of my children by demonstrating how condoms work with a banana. My children are welcome for that. Their therapist will make some money from that. What will be your response here and now? How will we take the decades of good work already accomplished in this congregation, all of the investments we have already done, not just in our youth, but in all of the adults, in our commitments to justice and joy? I invite you to sit with me in that, to consider it deeply, and to share the results of your discernment in time. In the fall or in the winter, I think it would be lovely if we could offer an adult-level OWL program. But we need some people to be trained. So consider that as an opportunity and a challenge. May you be well. May you be well and know your wholeness in all the ways that matter, which is all the ways, all the time. Amen.
Our closing song will be 1053. I invite you to stand as you're willing and able.
As you go forth today, may you, we'll do that too. Let's distinguish our chalice. Let's do that first. Blow out that beautiful, beautiful candle.
Please say our chalice extinguishing words with me.
Actually, wait. We need someone to blow it out. Hot world of the light of truth or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again. You may be seated for the postlude and carry this forth in your hearts. If you were someone who didn't yet feel comfortable putting a stone in the bowl, it's okay. This is a work in progress. When you feel ready, this bowl will be here. And if you don't feel ready to do it in front of the community, perhaps when you were out and about this week, just practice. Practice being part of that old South Valley Beautiful Persons Facebook group called our South Valley Friends and Members Facebook page. And may you be well, and may you have great sex.
As I went down in the valley to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down in the valley to pray. Oh, down in the valley to pray. I've got to walk that lonesome valley. I've got to walk it by myself. Oh, nobody else can walk it for me. I've got to walk it by myself. As I went down in the valley to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown?